I'm Toni Schindler with Aquatek Water Conditioning, and I'm here today with Connor from Pond Champs out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. And we are doing take 2 of our pond maintenance seminar that we hosted back in May. And we had technical difficulties and it just didn't go as planned. So Connor was nice enough to make the trip here to Wauseon and re-record this with us so that we can answer all of your pond questions so that you can maintain a healthy and wonderful, beautiful looking pond. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Connor, and we are going to kind of go through some slides and go through the product.
Hi, I'm Connor. I'm from Pond Champs. I'm the manager at Pond Champs. Sanco Industries is actually the products that we use, and Aquatek sells them at their place.
Yes.
So first off, we'll start off with our preventative pond maintenance. And usually the preventatives are our pond dyes, which help to darken the water, and that helps with the growth of unwanted algae and weeds. It's also used for aesthetics, just to make your pond look real nice. Usually with all three of the types of dyes that Toni sells, they are a gallon of dye per 1 acre of water, and that's for a 4 to 6 foot average depth of the pond. The first one is Crystal Blue, and this is our most popular dye. Like I said, 1 gallon will treat 4 to 6 foot deep of water. It's non-toxic, completely safe for swimming, irrigation, and wildlife. And the application for that would be every 30 to 60 days, depending on rainfall and the color of your pond. I will say there's a lot of drinking water ponds around Ohio, and sometimes you need to be a little careful with the application of that. I would be careful of where you put it in at, and I would start light. So if you have a 1/4 of an acre of a pond, I'd probably just do a 1/2 of a 1/4 of a gallon and just start light and see where you go with that. And continually just add in a little bit more to it. And also when you're doing that, I would be watching for where you actually pour it in at, because if you pour it in right on where your intake is, it could be more of a risk for having the dye sucked up into the house. The next one,
When you're applying the dye, do you pour it in one spot?
Yep, usually I pour it in one spot. Sometimes you can pay attention to the wind. It'll help it disperse a little bit faster, but honestly, it'll spread out just as well if you just go with one spot. It's not a big deal with the wind. But yeah, it's just pouring. I would wear gloves, otherwise your hands might get stained up a little bit. And then also another good thing to know is bleach will actually take it and clean it off a little bit if you happen to spill it on your dock or driveway or anything like that. Bleach, if you pour it right on while it's wet, it'll actually dilute it. So the next one is Ocean Blue, and it's more of a turquoise looking color. And it's just a lighter, more like an oceany color, and it's not as good for keeping it as dark as you want, but some people like that turquoise looking color, and not a bad one. Next. And our last one is Sapphire, and it's a combination of blue and black dye. There's more. It's a combination of blue and black dye, and to me it gives the pond more of a natural look. This is really good if you want, just a nice dark looking color, and it does help to darken the water too and help with inhibit unwanted growth. But the most popular is definitely Crystal Blue, and that is what we usually use for our services. And then herbicides. We'll get into herbicides, unless there's any more questions on the pond dye.
Nope.
It's fairly straightforward, 1 gallon per acre and 4 to 6 foot depth average. Herbicides. These are effective in controlling multiple types of pond weeds. We have herbicides for submerged weeds as well as emerged weeds around your pond, and those are around aquatic settings, so that's safe for anything around aquatic settings. Quite a few people don't realize that Roundup is not aquatic safe and will still spray around the edges of their pond. And these are herbicides that can be used for weeds that are not killed by copper sulfate. The first one is Tsunami. This herbicide is used to kill submerged weeds. It's effective in controlling hard to kill weeds such as duckweed, which is kind of a floating weed, but it's still in the water. It's a non-selective herbicide, meaning that it will basically kill any weed that's in the water. It can be blended with other herbicides for different uses, and one important thing is, especially in the springtime, there's a weed called curly leaf that actually comes up pretty heavy and thick in the springtime, but you need to pay attention to your water temperature. The water temperature has to be at least 60 degrees or higher for it to be effective. The warmer it is, the more effective these herbicides are. Any questions on the Tsunami for that? I'm sure there's a lot.
What's the best application?
The best application for Tsunami is usually to spray it. I recommend at least, I would say, a gallon per acre. So usually what you're doing with this product is you're spot spraying the weeds that are in the pond. You know, sometimes you get patches up in your shallow areas. It's not used to just completely spray the whole pond. I would, to get the most effectiveness out of it and just, you know, most cost friendly, I would spray where you see the weeds at in the pond. Now obviously this one's a little bit different. That's duckweed that's on top of the pond that covers the whole pond. In that case, I'd be spraying the whole pond. But most of the time you have your growth in 2 to 3 foot of water along the edges, and where you know your growth is, that's where I would spray. So when I do that in a sprayer, usually I would take a quarter of a gallon to, if you have a 1 gallon sprayer, I'd put in a quarter of a gallon Tsunami and I'd top it off with water. And as you're walking around the pond, when you see like that patch of weeds that you want to kill, I would spray it for about, you know, 5 to 10 seconds, depending on how thick the weeds are, and move on to the next spot. Now, if it's all the way around the edge, just spray all the way around the edge and just have a, you know, continual pattern going with it. That's the best application that I would use for it, and that just, you know, with having the water and whatnot, it just helps you get more use out of the product rather than just dumping it in and wasting product and you overusing it basically.
Are there any restrictions with
Yeah,
using?
so there's actually a 24-hour restriction on that, and that's basically to make sure that everything stays tight, it's still, and also it has a half-life of 24 hours. So anything that's not actually absorbed into the plant is neutralized by the dirt and mud. And honestly, if you can get a still day without rain, not saying rain really affects it, but just to ensure that you get a really good kill and the best out of your money, I would do it on a nice, calm, sunny day. Any of these products besides the dye, I would do on a nice, calm, sunny day. The next is Catflex. This is used to kill emergent weeds around the pond. You can see, might be able to see in some of the pictures, these are usually around the riprap or any weeds that are up out of the water in your pond, especially cattails, lily pads, all sorts of stuff like that. Like I said, it can be used along the edges. It's aquatic safe. It's a systematic herbicide that kills weeds all the way down to their root. And like I said, it's aquatic safe, glyphosate. So you have no problem with spraying it around the pond. And the application for that is 4 ounces to 1 gallon of water. And usually with that, I like to add our Plexmate, which is a surfactant to help stick it to the plants, especially cattails. The Plexmate, usually you just do a squirt into the bottle. It's about a teaspoon for a gallon. With cattails, I like to add probably 2 teaspoons just so I can get it to stick on that waxy coating of the cattail and actually get to kill all the way down to the roots and stay on there. Especially, like I said, with cattails and lily pads, they have more of a waxy coating on them. This could also be used around your house, you know, and it's an awesome product. Any other questions on that one? And like I said, I mentioned Plexmate. It's a surfactant that can be paired with Catflex and Tsunami. It helps stick to the plant, break any surface tension of the water. So this is, if you're going to use Tsunami, the only time I would recommend using Plexmate with Tsunami is if you're trying to kill floating weeds such as duckweed or watermeal. With that, you do the same, just a teaspoon, and that helps to keep the Tsunami on the top of the water without sinking it down, and that helps get a better kill on the duckweed. If you're going to use Tsunami for submerged weeds, do not use any surfactant, and make sure your sprayer is washed out really nice, especially if you're using your spray in other applications around the yard or anything like that.
Great.
Algicides. These are products that can kill all different types of algae. They can help reduce the risk of large algae blooms. They can kill algae that's toxic to fish and animals, and they help to maintain a clean pond. The first algicide is copper sulfate, and that's honestly the most widely used algicide probably in the world. It's effective in killing most mat-forming algae, so these are your big algae blooms that you see all the way across the pond. I don't know if you can see it in the picture there, but sometimes they're thick, you know. Its usage for that is usually around 10 pounds per acre, and everything I like to do by acre, so that way you can have an easier way of telling, you know, a quarter of an acre would be closer to your 2 pounds, 3 pounds area. It's just easier to break everything down from an acre. Sometimes it can be harmful to certain types of fish, including koi, goldfish, and trout, and that's just something to be important and wary of. They're more sensitive to oxygen loss, especially with killing a lot of algae at one time. Any questions on copper sulfate? All right, and Crystalplex is a chelated copper formula. It's used to effectively to kill mat-forming algae, planktonic algae, and chara. The one difference I would say is copper does not do a good job at actually killing planktonic algae, which is more of a film on the top of the water sometimes. Sometimes it can be all the way through the water column. It's a little harder to tell. Sometimes people confuse it with duckweed. The best way to tell is if you go run your hand through the water, the duckweed and watermeal will actually stick to your hand, whereas planktonic algae will not stick to your hand. It can be safely used in a sprayer with Tsunami if you have a combination of planktonic algae or mat-forming algae and weeds, and that's a good way to actually treat with. And it is actually really harmful to koi, goldfish, and trout. It just takes away the oxygen a little bit more than anything else. But with all your sport fish, it's actually it's fine. It ain't gonna do anything to the sport fish. And that application is still, it's a liquid, so it's a gallon to an acre again, and you spray that on. It actually disperses a little bit more than Tsunami does, so it can actually cover a little more area. So as you're spraying it, depending on how big your bloom is, where it is on the pond, you can walk all the way around the pond and spray the whole pond, or you can just treat the one section that the algae's in. It just depends on where it's at. A lot of times out here in Ohio, it blows out to one side because there's a ton of wind out here, and you'll find that it just blows to the one side. And like I said, it's just spraying. If you have, say, a quarter of an acre pond, I would do a quarter of a gallon in your gallon sprayer and fill the rest up with water.
Perfect.
That helps to get your product to last the longest. All right, and GreenX is the last algicide. It's one of the newest products in the algicide lineup. It's copper sulfate free, which means it's safe for koi, goldfish, and trout. It's a concentrated algicide that can be used at any water temperature, which most of these algicides can actually be used at any water temp. The warmer it is, the sunnier it is, the better the kill usually, but they still will work. It begins working immediately, results visible within 48 hours. For best results, water's warm, sunlight, higher water temperatures, and like I said, it's the formulation for that is if you have a bigger pond, it's the same as copper where you can use up to 10 pounds per acre. A lot of these are used for small koi ponds or fountain ponds, which is awesome. A lot of people have decorative ponds around here. And the application rate on that is 1 to 9 tablespoons per 1,000 gallons of water, which most people know what their koi tank or pond is going to hold gallon-wise of water. But yeah, I mean, it's a great product. We've used it quite a bit, and it's safe for koi, so that's really nice if you have a bigger pond that you put koi in. And I'm sure there's a few questions on that product.
No questions.
It works really well.
Is that the
I
best
love that product.
application is just to pour it in?
It probably to actually mix it in a sprayer and spray it. But if you're doing a small pond, it's probably best to just pour it in, or take a handful and like cast it, or you could use a scoop on a big pond and cast it out by hand. Always wear your PPE with whatever you're doing too. Any kind of application with any product, gloves, safety glasses, long sleeve shirts, all that. Just wear your PPE. Be safe. Better safe than sorry.
So with that, you can treat the whole pond at once,
Sure.
unlike the Crystalplex.
Sure.
Recommended just to.
Even with Crystalplex, you can treat the whole pond at once. It just depends on growth. Early in the year, if people haven't been treating their ponds, or even now, if you haven't treated your pond, if your pond's that's a really good question. If your pond's completely covered in any kind of growth, I always recommend to treat only half of it, because if you treat the whole thing and you end up killing everything, the oxygen loss may end up killing your fish or harming your fish. So I'd be really careful with that. If you can do just half, if it's like crazy growth and you can't see the water hardly, I would just do half, and you'll be happy with the results still, but I would wait another 2 weeks before you treat the next half. And usually with all these products, it's about a 2-week cycle is the best time to apply them. And that's to ensure that you have good preventative maintenance on your pond at all times.
Great.
Any other on that one?
I think we're good. Moving into muck.
All right, muck reduction. We actually have two different products for muck reduction. One is our BioSpikes and one's a natural pond cleaner. We'll go into them a little bit more. Natural pond cleaner. This is for more of your scum along your beach. You know, anything basically under 12 inches of muck. And muck is like a really black, soft substance that sticks to your feet and sticks to whatever basically you're going to put into the pond. And that's the best way to measure how much muck you actually have. You'll feel it'll hit a hard clay bottom once you get down to where there's no more muck. But like I said, it's the best for this product alone is if it's under 12 inches of muck. It supercharges naturally occurring pond bacteria to consume micronutrients for a healthy, clear pond. It's 100% safe for humans, fish, livestock, everything around the pond, anything like that. And it's the same, 1 gallon treats 1 surface acre, which is 4 to 6 foot deep. And like I said, my favorite thing to do with this, and it's really great in the springtime and fall time, you can do it all summer too. It helps reduce some odors in the pond. It's my favorite thing to do is pour it along the beach area. Like sometimes the beach areas get a little forming of scum, and that's where it works the best at, and people are really happy with that usually. It's all around just a great, it's like a probiotic for your pond. It's just a great product to have in there. And that is, I would do every 2 weeks until, the only thing I will recommend is if you start treating with an herbicide or copper, don't put that in on the same week that you're doing that, because that'll actually eat the herbicide or copper and it kills the bacteria, basically neutralizing it. So I would wait in between treatments to put it in, or do it in your fall and spring when there's not much growing. And it's a cold water bacteria too, so it's fine in any type of weather.
Great.
Is that something that only people with older ponds should use? Or
I would still recommend it even for newer ponds, just to keep up on that bacteria and probiotics, and just eating some of the nutrients. The more nutrients that it can eat out of the pond, honestly, the less problems you might have with algae down the road. Algae grows off of nutrients and whatnot, so it'll help out. It's a great product to use alongside with your dye for a preventative product. And the next one's Muck Doctor. This is where your muck gets over 12 inches, and it is you have to have muck over 12 inches for it to work really well. It usually eats about 5 feet down and 5 feet wide, and it eats down to the hard clay that it can eat down to. And so when I tell people to apply this product, I usually tell them throw it within a 5 foot grid of everywhere you're going with the sticks. Same thing, it's a naturally occurring bacteria. It's basically natural pond cleaner on steroids. And one box of Muck Doctor will treat approximately 50 feet of shoreline, or 250 square feet. So like I said, that gives you your 5 by 5. And it's most active, and this is a huge thing, is water temperatures above 60. We usually like to apply it when the water temp's closer to 80. So we'll wait until usually June, July, August. Those are usually our best times. Later June, middle of July, August, that's our best time for it to be the most effective. Also, an aerator definitely helps keep it. It helps kickstart it, basically, is what it does. But it's an aerobic bacteria, so it needs oxygen to keep doing what it does. But yeah, other than that, it's a great product too. I mean, it's a good, safe way, and you know, it's a little cheaper than mechanical dredging would be. A little cheaper than that.
Yeah.
And the last product on here is, it's Pond Booster. It's actually our pond bacteria, our natural pond cleaner, mixed with the dye, all in one. So you don't have to worry about pouring both of them in or whatever. And it's the same as all the others. 1 gallon will do 1 acre, 4 to 6 foot deep. And it just makes it easier. It's, instead of having 2 bottles, you just do it all in one. And that's usually best to do, like I said, if you're doing any copper or herbicide treatments, do it on every other week of that. That way you don't neutralize it and have plenty of it to use.
What's the best temperature? Water temperature?
Water temperature is any on that one. You can go in the fall, the spring, summer, any of it. That's why I just recommended with the herbicide stuff. Like obviously with Tsunami, you can't treat if it's below 60 degrees in the water temp, so you won't have to worry about it at all then. But if you're treating with that or copper sulfate or Crystalplex, I would do it every other week in the summertime or when you're using that. But other than that, it has no problem with any type of water temperature. It's good to use all year round, really. Just don't let it freeze on the top of the pond.
Awesome.
So.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Connor.
No problem.
We have really appreciated working with Pond Champs and Sanco over the past couple of years because we have so many customers who use their ponds for drinking water. And these products are safe and they're effective. So it's just been a really nice working relationship, and we're so happy to be able.
I love being able to come over.
Yeah, we love being able to have these types of conversations because this helps educate us and our staff, and then we can put this out too, so that if you're not able to come into our store, you can just check our YouTube page and our social media pages and our website, and it will be there for you all year long.
Absolutely.
So
you guys do a great job with helping everyone out too.
Thank you. We appreciate it. So we appreciate it. He came out of the field today, even has blue dye on his hands. So we just appreciate him coming over today and sharing this great information with us.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.